First tonight, the patient's been unfairly fined for non-payment of prescription charges. Figures show the amount of fines being handed out to people in Yorkshire has almost doubled in a year.
Yet many of those being fined were eligible for free prescriptions. Campaigners say the system's flawed, but the NHS says every penny counts. Louise FEWSTER has this one.
That's showing you blood sugar levels, so it's 3.5, which is quite low. But so obviously I need something to eat. I'm ready for my tea.
Louise Jarman has been diabetic since she was 6. As a result, she's always been exempt from paying for her insulin. But a couple of months ago, she received a fine of £50 in the post for failing to pay for her prescription.
I knew I had to have some kind of exemption, but I didn't know it went out of date. It's a lifelong illness. If I had to pay for them, I'd pay for them. But I know that I'm exempt because of diabetes. It's not... I've not done it on purpose. I've not got a card on purpose. It's just I didn't know you had to have an up-to-date card.
Mr. Conway, I've just had a look in the computer and we haven't actually got your date.
Right. When issuing prescriptions, pharmacies do check to see whether a patient has to pay.
So if you're medically exempt from paying for your prescriptions, you'll have to fill out one of these. It's an exemption declaration form. If you haven't got your certificate with you, the pharmacist will then put a cross in this box here.
In the last year, the number of people being fined in Yorkshire for not paying for their prescriptions has almost doubled, from around 50,000 to just over 100,000, recouping £1.2 million in Yorkshire.
If they make a declaration which isn't correct, the NHS does have a responsibility to follow that up. Fraudulent and other mistakes that are made do cost the NHS millions of pounds.
However, the British Medical Association says the prescription system is unfair and needs addressing.
It's simply unfair that patients who have thyroid disorders or diabetes get free prescriptions, and yet patients who have asthma and heart disease have to pay for all of their prescriptions.
So while the BMA and the British Pharmaceutical Society call for reform, for now it's down to patients to check whether they are exempt for paying for their prescriptions or risk being fined. Louise FEWSTER, BBC Look North.
RORY DEIGHTON from patients watchdog Healthwatch Kirklees is with us now. What are you seeing, Rory? Are you seeing a majority of fraudsters being fined, or is it people who genuinely are confused by the system?
I think we see both. I think it's absolutely appropriate that people who are misusing the system are fined and pay penalty charges. But we also see lots and lots of people who, for whatever reason, are being chased down and having fines issued against them, penalty charges issued against them, when actually they're perfectly entitled to free prescriptions.
Isn't it people's own responsibility to know whether they're exempt or not, and that would then save the NHS more money for not having to send out all these fines?
It is people's responsibility, and I absolutely agree that people should take responsibility for their own actions. But we need to, the system needs to give people the correct information in which to make good decisions. And at the moment, the information is complex and overly complex, and people bring work into us. Patients bring work into us, and we don't understand what the Department of Work and Pensions is saying, let alone the patient themselves.
Is there a better way of doing things then? That's what you're suggesting. It's too complicated, and if you get a letter and a fine, people panic, don't they?
They do, and in December, for example, I think that about 120,000 penalty charges went out, and about 50,000 of those were overturned on appeal, and that feels like an enormous number. That feels like an enormous number of letters arriving on people's letterboxes, causing trouble in families, for carers, causing trouble for organisations like mine and for CABs and for law centres who end up helping these people.
So, give us a way around this problem. What would you suggest?
It's about simplicity and about clarity. It needs to be a simple system that's easy for everybody to understand. There always will be people who try to misuse the system, but we believe that the vast majority of people are looking to access proper care.
RORY DEIGHTON, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.